In the studio today, we have State Senator John McGuire, who's running in the 5th District for that Congress seat against Bob Good. Thanks for being in the studio. We appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. And that's Congressional District number 5.
Okay. Listen, you've decided to take on the incumbent, Bob Good. But just last year, while running for state senate, you actually spoke pretty glowingly about Bob Good. Let's take a look.
And I'm wondering if you would pledge to not run against Bob Good next year.
My pledge to you is I'm running for Virginia State Senate, and I'm going to support Bob Good for re-election.
What changed in the weeks and months after you were elected with Bob Good?
Well, we found out that Bob is not who he says he is. And, really constituents, we the people, all over the district while I'm campaigning, kept saying, look, this guy is a tyrant. He treats people poorly. He's mean-spirited. And, with no evidence, I just kind of ignored that. But when I found out it's true, he's not who he says he is, I changed my opinion of Bob. And for example, he went all over the district telling about he was a Trump supporter. And this is a 77+% Trump district. But then on the day that Trump got indicted, he endorsed another candidate and went around the district trashing Trump. And we talked about it earlier. You may remember he went on a national TV show and a woman said, "You've been trashing Trump." And he said, "I've never trashed Trump." And then she said, "There's a video of you trashing Trump." And he said, "There's no video of me trashing Trump." So then they played the video. And in the video, they cut it, but he said he's not pro-life, not pro-gun, not conservative. And he said he was the only man who could lose to Biden. And I believe the exact words in that clip that she showed is he didn't want to sit by and regret that we nominated President Trump. So how do you say you're a Trump supporter and you're not? But in the video, he says, "I don't say this publicly, I say this privately." And she goes, "Did you just tell my audience that you say one thing in public and a different thing in private?" And he goes, "No, I didn't," but he just did it. And so the thing is, I think all Americans are sick and tired of politicians that say one thing in public and a different thing in private. And we have got to have a Congress that supports the America First agenda. We have less freedom, we have open borders, we have a Chinese chemical warfare with fentanyl coming across the border, killing Americans. We got a lot of work to do.
We'll talk about some of that, but let's play that clip for some of those who may not have seen it right now.
Sure.
I've never been caught on camera trashing President Trump.
You're asking me privately. I should say this. I can't sit by and watch and regret that we nominated Trump.
And then I have to ask you, how do you respond to the voters who elected you to the state senate, thinking you'd be there for a while, fighting for them, and now you're running for Congress?
Well, that's a great question. And I got to tell you, all over the district, people saying, "Thank you for giving us a choice." And the people of the district are the ones that asked me to do this. And they basically said, "John, you're the only one who can beat him." Now, the truth is, God's going to determine the outcome. I'm a hard worker, and we'll put it in the people's hands, and we've given them a choice. And the people will decide on June 18th. Of course, early voting started last Friday, but the last day to vote, Election Day, is June 18th.
Listen, Congressman Good is taking you on. In one of his spots, he claims that you sided with the left to protect the rights of sexual predators and transgender athletes. How do you respond to that? And we're going to play that clip too.
John McGuire sided with leftists to co-sponsor a constitutional amendment to protect boys in girls' sports and to enshrine the right for men to use girls' bathrooms. John McGuire may run ads about being a sniper, but he's way off target on our Virginia values.
Well, I would say desperate campaign, grasping at straws. The Family Foundation, which is, they do more to protect families in Virginia than any other organization I know of. They give me a 100 score. And that, first of all, the bill, I voted against it. I voted no on that bill 6 times. Look it up. I voted no on it 6 times. Never voted for it, voted against it 6 times. And of course, the Democrats attacked me for voting no. So he's grasping at straws for something that didn't exist. And I got to tell you, I think it's demonic. I think it's how do you say you hate women more than to allow biological males to compete on a swim team? How do you, putting biological males in a bathroom with girls in my district, little girls hold their bathroom till they get home because they don't want to go to the bathroom with boys in the bathroom. So anyone who looks at my record, I have the highest award for conservatism in Virginia. The American Conservative Union gives me a score of conservative excellence. Only a few legislators out of 140 get that. And this year, he probably didn't tell you, I got Policymaker of the Year. a couple of years ago out of 140, I got a legislator of the year. So what his attack doesn't fit the record. And I would ask your viewers to look up the record.
So I take it that you're against transgender folks competing on the opposite side of...
1,000%. And you know,
Okay.
the thing is, it's just not fair. And you know, I heard a story about a male who got arrested for assaulting a female. So then he now identifies as a female, and he got into MMA fighting, and he went up against one of the strongest female fighters and cracked her skull. And so how do you say you hate women more than this crazy ideology? And so to me, you know, as a Christian, even if we disagree, I love you, but I get my principles from the Bible.
An ad supporting you says that Congressman Good voted against the border security bill that many people were in favor of. We're going to take a look at that, too.
Yet Bob Good voted against funding our border security, opposed billions for ICE, opposed millions for new technology, opposed thousands of new border agents. Bob Good voted against all of it.
That border security bill, though, failed. There was talk that the former president, Donald Trump, torpedoed it because he didn't want to give President Biden the upper hand on border security.
I got a simple answer for that. Fake news. But I would tell you this, as a Navy SEAL, as a veteran, and by the way, without our men and women in law enforcement or our men and women in the military, we would not have a country. I believe in limited government, a government accountable to the people, not the people accountable to the government. I believe in more freedom, smaller government. But if I believe in anything, keep you safe. And we are less safe at the local, state, and federal level because of these America Last Biden policies. And so if you want to solve the problem at the border, we need to get President Trump in the White House. And I'm doing everything I can. I'm working with the Trump team to get Trump elected. And I believe my opponent has a history of working against Trump candidates and the Trump team. And I think the voters see that. And I think that's why the polling just shows me with a 14-point lead this early in the campaign.
Listen, that bill, though, that got torpedoed, a number of lawmakers say that they were contacted by the former president and not to vote for it. Are you saying that you might have gone against the former president's wishes and supported that border bill?
No, I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is that if we really want to have a secure border, we have got to get President Trump elected. I mean, he's a businessman. He wanted to build the wall. And we had the immigration numbers illegal immigration numbers went way down under his watch. And so if we want to solve the problem with this invasion, there's over 10 million illegal immigrants in this, in our country, at least, we don't even know. And they're causing a lot of problems because they're putting these criminals back on the street. There was an illegal alien in this District 5 that was released 4 times. 33 years old, and he just raped a 14-year-old girl in Campbell County in the 5th Congressional District. So it goes against everything I believe. I'm a protector, and I'm sure you are as well. And we have got to keep our people safe, and we are less safe. And so I think the answer to securing the border, I mean, there's a lot of answers. We got to remain in Mexico and all those policies that Trump had, but we have got to get Trump back in.
Yeah, one of your ads talks about Donald Trump needing reinforcements in Congress in order to have his agenda move forward should he win another term. Bob Good did support Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, but is now a Trump supporter. And that says to you what?
Well, you know, it's a free country. You can support who you want, but you shouldn't lie about it. And so, you know, in 2016, after Trump won the primary, we should help him defeat Hillary Clinton. But he was on social media attacking Trump. Then you fast forward to 2022. He's in a primary battle. So he begs Trump for an endorsement. And how does he repay him? Less than a year later, when the chips are down. You know, when the chips are down, that's how you find out who's got your back. When he got that ridiculous indictment that even Democrats think is ridiculous, he switched to endorse DeSantis, and then he went around the district trashing Trump. And then I guess he got caught in that video you mentioned earlier. And then the thing is, you saw him, he went on live TV and said there's no such video. He does not talk trash. So I think people are sick and tired of politicians that say one thing in public and a different thing in private. I'd say he cannot be trusted.
You both talk about being conservatives.
Yes.
And as you know, he is the leader of the Freedom Caucus, a very conservative group, and he also has the support of other conservatives in Congress. Why would you say that he's not conservative enough?
Well, if you're not supporting President Trump, you're not conservative enough.
But he does now.
Well, allegedly, because he said he supported him last year when I was running for state senate. And what did he do as soon as the chips were down. Would you rather have a guy that's been with you and had your back and when the chips were down nonstop since you came down the escalator, or a guy who's flip-flopped back and forth? And you know, you probably hear my opponent calling people rhino all the time. Well, and so I made a joke, and it wasn't really a joke, but I call him a rhino just to give him a taste of his own medicine. And so
It's in some of the ads that are on the air for you.
So people would say, how do you call him a rhino? He's a conservative. Well, I look at it this way. Rhino means Republican in name only. If you have a Republican team and you're wearing the Republican jersey, but you partner with the Democrat team to take out the Republican team, what team are you on? Who's the rhino? You know, Governor Glenn Youngkin put his heart and soul into getting the state Senate and the House of Delegate majorities this year. And he said, we can win as long as we don't do anything stupid. And right before the elections, with no plan, they took out the speaker, but they partnered with the Democrats to do it, whether you like the speaker or not. And we lost the House of Delegates by 1,700 votes. Do you realize 1,700 votes is nothing? We lost the Senate by about 2,000 votes. That's nothing in the whole state of Virginia. And over Thanksgiving, I got text messages from folks who said their family members that are independents saw that infighting and they switched their vote back to Democrat.
Let's talk about the ouster of the House Speaker, because
Sure.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is on a crusade right now to oust Speaker Johnson. That drama,
I believe she stood down on that.
she stood down. But is it time for a change, and would you support that effort if it were to come up again?
So first of all, let's go back to the other speaker fight. If we had,
Well, let's stick with this one.
Okay. Well, I think they kind of tie together. But
Okay.
They tie together. But I would say this, as a military person, if you were lined up with your teammates fighting the bad guys, and one of your own teammates turns around and starts shooting his own team guys, you would call that person a traitor.
Are you calling Bob Good a traitor?
I'm not saying that. Your audience can decide for themselves.
That's
But
what it sounds
But
like.
you got to pick a team. You're either on the Republican team or the Democrat team. And so in the middle of the fight, we had a majority that was tiny. Now it's down to a one-vote majority.
And you think Bob Good is responsible in part for that?
Clearly, and without his decision, we wouldn't have Mike Johnson. Now, I like Mike Johnson. I never met him. I don't know anything about him, but he's a Christian conservative. But here's the thing. He's making these decisions, and he said we had no plan. Navy SEALs, we don't do things without a plan. 3.5 weeks, we lost the House and the Senate. Now let's fast forward to Johnson. We have got to get the majority. I'm sure Nancy Pelosi loves Bob Good because his decisions are helping her get more of her agenda. Think about it. We're down to a one-vote majority in Congress. She's getting more of her agenda passed. So again, he says he's on the Republican team, but the decisions that he's making. So I think he lacks the temperament, I think he lacks the judgment, and he lacks the leadership to get our country out of the ditch that we're in. A good leader brings people together to grow the party. And he's beaten up Republicans all over the state of Virginia. Maybe he should try growing the party, not shrinking the party.
College campuses in Virginia and around the nation are seeing lots of demonstrations over the Israel-Hamas war. I'm sure you're aware. Most people agree that anti-Semitism in any form, anywhere, is uncalled for. Congress now looking at pulling some funding from colleges and universities over it. Is that an appropriate response to what's happening?
At a minimum. At a minimum, that's an appropriate response. But also, I think, go back to what Ronald Reagan would say, is if you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. And if you give an inch, they take a mile. You have to stand strong. You can't pick and choose which laws you follow. Now, peaceful protesting is one thing, but when people are being harmed and their life is in danger, that is not a peaceful protest, and that is illegal. And you can't pick and choose which laws you enforce.
And what would defunding, if you will, some of these colleges and universities do over this?
Well, what would it do? Well, you know, the power of the purse. I mean, I think they would have to cut programs and staff and everything else, and they'd have their own riot for the bad decisions that they make. And so I think that's an excellent step in the right direction, at a minimum step in the right direction.
All right, Donald Trump continues to take credit for overturning Roe v. Wade. The former president has also suggested that he would support a national ban on abortion of 15 weeks. Where do you stand on this issue?
Well, for me, I'm a Christian, and in my principles, it says that God knows who you are before you're formed in a womb. So I think life is a miracle, and it must be protected at all costs. And that's from the time you're born to the time you die. I mean, if I only had a minute or two to live, I'd take it because it is a miracle. So I would, my stance on that is
Total ban?
Well, no, I would not say that. I would say that I am not for abortion, But I think that we got to save as many moms and as many babies as possible.
What about rape, incest?
Well, that's a terrible thing. But we do have options like adoption.
So you would be against a rape victim or an incest victim getting an abortion?
Well, I wouldn't say I'd be, well, I'm against abortion.
Okay, so that's a yes, you'd be against it. The Supreme Court right now is considering whether Donald Trump is entitled to immunity from criminal prosecution for alleged official acts while he was in the White House. Mm-hmm. Do you see it that way? Should he be criminally prosecuted for some of the things he may have done while in the White House if it reaches that bar?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but I think all Americans can see it. It appears that we have two-tier justice system. Rules for thee, not for me. And are they holding him to the same standard that they hold other presidents and other legal? And
what do you think? Because some people think that they are by prosecuting him.
Yeah, I think it's a witch hunt, and I think it's the biggest level of election interference. And that's what it's all about. Biden is way down in the polls in many of the swing states, and they're doing whatever they can to win. And they're willing to lie, cheat, steal, change the rules. So it's election interference at the highest level.
All right, let's talk about gun violence. You're a Navy SEAL. Mass shootings always grab the headlines, the attentions of many of us, especially when assault weapons are used. What's the best response you as a lawmaker could have when people say it is time to ban certain weapons like assault weapons in this country?
I don't know if we have enough time for the answer, but I'm going to do my best.
Well, try and pare it down as best you can.
Well, the problem is people always talk about mental health, and it's certainly an issue, but there's also something called an evil heart. And it's your God-given right, enshrined in our Constitution, to protect yourself, your family, and your children. And I know it was alleged, but in World War II, a Japanese admiral said, I would be afraid to invade the United States because there would be a rifle behind every blade of grass. To me, it's also a national security issue. You look at October 7th, when the terrorist organization Hamas came into Israel and they mowed down 240 innocent college kids partying with no concern for their own life, because they knew it was hard to get a gun in Israel. And so Israel is now rethinking their gun policies in Israel because it's a personal defense issue. And I got to tell you, I put in a bill in the General Assembly called sovereign immunity. I got letters in all 50 states saying that it was the best pro-gun bill they'd ever heard of. And what it says is if you get shot in a gun-free zone, you can sue the government because there's no such thing as a gun-free zone. And it makes you a helpless victim. Think about this, if I knew this building was a gun-free zone and I was a bad guy, I'd just walk in there and have no problem. But if I knew you might have a gun, I might think about it.
Well, there are a lot of people saying what happened in Israel was really a failure of intelligence, that had intelligence been able to identify and get on this much earlier, this never would have happened. So it's a failure of the Netanyahu government.
Well, you can always Monday morning quarterback. But the problem is, just like in dignitary protection, they only got to be right once. You got to be right every time. And again, if a bad guy broke into your home to kill you and your children, and you had a gun, you'd be glad you had a gun. And if you didn't, you wish you had a gun. And we love our law enforcement. Without our men and women in law enforcement, we would not have a country. But they can't be everywhere. And I heard a 911 tape. I'll try to find it to you if you want it. And the dispatcher said, we have no one to send to a woman who had a child. They said, hide in the bathroom. That's not a good answer. So it's your God-given right to protect yourself. And think about England. London, England has some of the strictest gun laws in the world. And a few years ago, the mayor was trying to outlaw knives. And think about Chicago. Chicago, sadly, in our country that we fight for, Chicago has the strictest gun laws in the country. And it's not even unusual that 45 people get shot over a weekend. And those guns are illegal guns. And these gun laws that they go after us with, they always go against law-abiding citizens. You know, criminals don't care about a law. They don't care. You can put every law you want, you can ban whatever you want, and they're going to get it. And they're going to get some sort of weapon. And let's go back to the assault rifle. Do you realize an assault rifle is just a name they put on a rifle? It's really a semi-automatic rifle, the one they're trying to ban. And if I hit somebody in the head with a hammer, they call it an assault hammer. It's just a name, it's a word. It's a semi-automatic rifle. With a hunting rifle, I can do the same thing.
All right. State Senator John McGuire, thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark, for having me.
Thank you.